Okay, hello. My name is Autumn Brown, and we are here today, August 15th, 2024, at the city of Oklahoma City, talking to the Burge family about their experience growing up in the Harrison edition. So before we get started, I'm going to have each participant just say their name for the camera, and then we will get started.
My name is Herman Burge.
I'm Mae Burge.
I'm Alden Burge.
Nice to meet you all, and let's just go ahead and get started. So you all were raised in the Harrison edition in Oklahoma City. So
Yes.
start off by telling me where that edition was and what it was like growing up in that community.
Okay.
Well, mainly the addition is located at Center Road and 63rd, going as far back as Wilshire, right?
Yeah.
And as far east would be Air Depot, and then going west would be Coal Train.
Right.
I would
Right.
think that was what we would call that area. The area would be known as Harrison.
Mhm.
But the center line kind of was Center Road,
Okay.
So.
Mhm.
And what was the area like? What was the community like?
It's a rural area.
Mhm.
It's rural. A lot of people have lots of land. Other people, all of the lots are probably bigger than what you would find in the city. Okay, but we happen to be on 10 acres. There are people across the street that are on 5 acres. Hannah Atkins is a resident. She owned a house diagonal across from us.
Wow.
Dr. Bisco, I don't remember his first name, Charles.
Brian Biscuit.
Brian Bisco.
Yeah.
He was directly across the street from us. And then Miss Johnson was diagonal east of us. She was a school teacher also. And then Boyd used to be one of the police chiefs, and he lived next to Hannah Atkins.
Wow.
And I currently still live on 6th. I moved back there in 2004, I think. 2004.
Wow.
Because we lived on the south side of 63rd. Those are larger lots, 10 acres. People who lived on the north side is zoned as 5 acres. So.
But I think the whole area is zoned agricultural.
And Dr. What's Kevin Cox?
Yeah.
Kevin Cox's parents, they lived in the community too.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of, I call
Dignitaries
professional
of profession.
living in our community. Dr. Haywood, he was very elderly. He was probably about 80 years old when I was growing up there. Did you know his first name?
Probably, if you hadn't asked me.
But and he lived kind of like on his office on about 65th, no, about 70th in Center Road, and he had what we call, to me, it looked like a mansion. Because you pass now, like it looks small, but when we was growing up, that looked like a big place. He drove Cadillacs. He had about 2 or 3 of them.
Jaguar.
Yeah, but it was a great community to grow up in. Everybody knew each other, especially the parents and everything. And Harrison, what was Harrison, the elementary? I wasn't elementary, because I think
it was just Harrison School.
Right.
I think because it was all. It was like we had no kindergarten. It was
first through the 8th grade for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we had it was, of course, it was still part of the Oklahoma City School District. And because I do remember whenever they had PTA, all the parents showed up for the PTA.
It's like everybody knew everybody's parents.
Yeah.
And everybody knew everybody's.
Yeah, there was 2 churches.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Forgot about it. One at a time. But there was 2 churches. Pilgrim Rest was probably the oldest, and then United. So mostly everybody went, to one or the other. But all the kids knew each other.
Wow.
Yeah. So because we used to have a lot of church socials and things like that going on during that time. And, it was.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest advantage was you hit on the head already. The I won't use a military word, but I'm not. But the gathering of everybody knew everybody, and everybody got along. I don't recall nobody having like the Hatfields and McCoy or something.
Yeah.
But because we all went to school together, and in most cases, we all went to church together at one church or other. So, so you knew people that knew the people if you didn't know them. But most cases, all the neighbors, everybody knew everybody. They could be 2 miles over down the road. You still knew them. Went to school with them. Went to school with the kids. And everybody just really got along. And I think for that time, it was a real well-to-do black gathering of township. It wasn't a township, but it was so together that it could have been a township, And we had, all the people there. A lot of the people work at Tinker Air Force Base.
And many of them rode together.
Yeah.
They rode to work together because, you're coming right back to the same area.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's before shuttling was a popular thing, Yeah. Conservation appeal, you sort of did it out of just common sense. Hey, you going the same way I'm going, okay.
Yeah.
You drive this week, I'll drive next week,
Wow.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, the other unique thing about it is not like today's community, well, okay, like today, but there was a 2-parent family. There may be 1 or 2 that might not have been, but mostly everybody had 2 parents. So
Lived in the same house.
and there was, and they saw you out doing something. If they told you to stop doing it, you better do it. If you didn't, they would call your parents. If they didn't get you, even if they did get you, they would call your parents and let you know, and then they gonna get you too. But that was one of the things about that community that I remember, that how everybody had parents, and we shared a lot. I remember, even some of the elderly, like Miss Holmes, that she was one of the elderly ladies of the community. I know my parents would send stuff over to her. And other people did the same thing. We kind of took care of the community. If somebody needed something, everybody chipped in and did what they could. So,
And even Miss Holmes even chipped in, because she raised chickens, so she had eggs.
Yeah.
So mother would get the eggs from her and like send her some cucumbers or okra, tomatoes or whatever. It was always, we may not have had cash, but guess what? We got something to help too.
Yeah, the barn.
Put in. Yeah, sure was.
And the other thing about the community, especially the 50s, we didn't have to lock our doors. I remember many times, I remember Mother said, we was going to St. Louis, Mother said, just hook the screen door, because Miss telling somebody may need to come and borrow something. You wouldn't think of doing things like that, but no, there was no reason, because people may need to do something. and because I remember many times, there would be a note on the table that we had to borrow something, but that was okay. But that was like I said, I know that was in the 50s. I'm not sure as we moved into the late 60s if that still continued, but that was one of the unique things too. I don't know. I know we didn't have to do it.
Yeah.
And we lived on at 63rd.
We were on the main street.
It's the main street through there. So I don't know anybody else there, but they may have but we didn't
Yeah.
because my parents believed it, definitely believed in sharing whatever they had with other
Yeah.
people.
And then we were one of the few families that had a telephone, and you had the party lines back then. So
Wait, what's a party
That
line?
was, oh, bless your heart.
Like, let's capture that. What does that mean?
that would be the phone company would like hook up probably 4 to 5 houses on one line.
Oh.
So if you picked up the phone to talk and somebody might be on there talking already, then you had to wait. You get a chance to get on.
Wow.
I'm sorry.
Oh yeah.
And then everybody had their own ring though.
Yeah, everybody had their own ring.
Okay.
Yes, everybody had their own ring.
Yes.
So,
Wow.
but sometimes somebody pick it up,
Yeah.
Not paying attention.
Yeah.
But
Interesting.
that was-
okay.
and that's when we had prefix like Garfield. What was
Hancock. Alden Hancock.
The prefix.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, now we just use numbers like 77. What's that number out there?
It was
771.
2591.
Yeah.
That's right.
But
That
before
was
it was like Garfield, GAR, then dash your number.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then the filing phone company just went
Okay.
to just strictly
Yeah.
numbers.
I think I was a PR or something.
Yeah, I was
It was
PR, but I think on the west side of Center Road they had Garfield.
Mhm.
Seemed like I remember.
Interesting.
Mhm.
So you all had 10 acres. What all did you all raise? What agriculture
I'll let
did you
Leah
all
tell
have
you
on your...
what we did over that.
It was a thriving, I'm gonna say, farm.
That's right.
There were
Small business.
cows. We even had a horse at one point that we actually owned. There were pigs, chickens.
Mhm.
What else we had running around?
At one point, we kept somebody's ducks.
Yes.
Yeah, but
Because mother
Yes.
was mad at
that
it
was
because it tore up.
that was short lived.
Yeah.
It messed
My
up her
dad
trees,
was like,
her
okay,
trees.
I don't need to have to cut all this grass. Whoever's goats they were, he said, bring them on,
Yeah.
bring them on,
Okay.
So they went through, and
Yeah.
of course they would eat everything in sight too.
Not just
And that's what
grass.
mother did.
Including
Like.
her peach trees.
Yeah.
She was
But-
mad.
and then we grew potatoes, sweet potatoes, Irish potatoes, tomatoes, okra, peppers, corn, peas, green beans,
Wow.
you name it, we had it. And like you said, that was normally the stuff that was frozen. My mother and them, they were canning. They were some of the
Mhm.
original canners, almost, and her sisters and all. So that's where they would put them away.
Mhm.
And then they would also trade off, well, if you got a good crop of potatoes and I didn't, okay, well, you give me some of your sweet potatoes, and we'll, like I said, the bartering system. It was well used, and it wasn't like, well, you got to give me some because I got to get, because I gave you some. That wasn't nowhere in the
Yeah, if you don't
in the
have
program.
it,
Yeah, you don't have it, you have it, so you give it.
yeah.
You got excess, you give it,
Yeah, so-
And there was no argument about it.
I like that. If you had excess, you give it.
Yeah.
'Cause you don't see that now.
Yeah.
You just hoard the excess.
Exactly.
That's right.
Because we had a large family, we had
4 boys, 4 girls.
nine
4 boys,
kids.
5 girls. 5
Oh,
girls.
wow.
Living.
Mhm.
Mother actually had 12 children,
Yeah.
but 9 living.
I mean, of course, in the community also, everybody had large families.
Yeah,
that was another thing.
Yeah, that was another compliment.
I mean, of course, Dr. Atkins and Dr. Bisco, they had,
Johnson.
yeah.
No, they
But,
had smaller
Of course,
families.
Dr. Cox had a lot of kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I hate that we didn't contact Kevin Cox.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, I'm sure he had a whole lot of stuff because he's a little older.
But
well, he
I
might
will
be
call
a
him.
little older than we are. So.
Wow, that seems good. I interviewed three brothers this morning, and they had, they were from Westtown, and
Oh,
it was
okay,
the Steele
Westtown.
family. Yeah.
Oh, the
Okay.
Steele from the
Yeah,
Steele family?
the Steele family.
Oh, okay. What,
And
Mark?
it was Marvin, Carl, and Dawn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I know them.
But they mentioned there were 9 of them as well.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
then my interview just before you all, I
Yeah.
think she mentioned there were like 5 or 6 of them. So
Mhm.
it seems like
Yeah.
the big family is like
Yeah,
a
they-
theme.
Yeah, they was related to the steel was related to cousin to the lust.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
So there's over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
there's overlap.
Because when we start going to churches,
Okay.
you run it and then you're like, oh, we cousins.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
no wonder y'all had large families.
But yeah, there were several. I mean, the Lawrences,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Ivies, the Thompsons,
yeah.
Parkers.
Yeah, everybody had
And there
large
was
families.
2 or 3 families of Lawrences.
Oh yeah, sets
two
of
people.
Lawrence.
Well, Parkins too. There were what 3? There was
Oh, yeah.
the preacher. There was the one that rode with Dad,
Yeah, that was a set.
and some of there was another one. But there were other families there, and but still, everybody helped everybody. And like I said, there were no feuds and all that type of stuff that they and definitely you can't compare it to what goes on today.
Yeah.
There was no comparison. You could, we could walk home from church at night, no problem. You could walk during the day, no problem. I mean, and we sometimes walked to school, whether it was a bus. We did catch the bus, but sometimes some of us were bold and we wanted to walk to school.
Or missed the bus.
Or missed the bus.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
Mr.
you
A.C.
walk.
Johnson,
Yeah.
one of the elders of the community, he used to be the bus driver.
And the barber.
And
he used to cut
and
hair.
Mr. Butler was one of the.
Yeah, he was
Mr.
one
Yeah,
of them.
Mr.
Yeah,
Both
Mr.
of them
Butler.
was the bus driver for our community area.
Yeah, he coordinated all the busing for the schools and all.
Yeah.
And even for recreation, like we used to go to Watonga Park.
Yeah.
And so for like a summer vacation.
Romano's.
Yeah,
Romano's.
Romano's, there you go.
Those places.
And he'd coordinate the buses and how many we needed and the sizes of them.
Wow.
Or the Frontier City, because they'll say
Frontier
other
City,
places.
yeah, all the outings.
They-
He
they
was the
do
one
others.
that made sure we had transportation.
Yeah.
So what was the dynamic in your family? Like, I mean, 8 other siblings, 9 siblings total,
Right.
2 parents. What was the dynamic like between you all?
Well, the one
Oh,
thing
you
they
had to
did.
get along. That was there was no option.
As a matter of fact, we just had a big get together. My oldest brother just turned 80, and so we just had a big birthday party. All of us.
Yeah, everybody still living.
Like my brother here lives in San Antonio,
Oh.
and then 3 of my youngest sister live down in the Dallas area. And matter of fact, just about everybody lived away, but we have, since retirement stuff, we all have migrated back.
Yeah,
to
yeah.
Oklahoma.
Or at least close.
General
Yeah, close
area,
to the city.
Yeah, and then this weekend is my birthday, and so we will be
Oh,
celebrating
Well,
again.
happy
That's
birthday.
one reason why he's still here.
Oh,
is so that they can celebrate.
he's,
Happy birthday.
He's a retired chief master sergeant from the Air Force. Yeah.
Wow.
So.
Well, thank you for your service.
Yeah,
That's
so
incredible.
all I could do was 4 years. Is all I could do.
Hey, 4 more than a lot.
Yeah, but in my family, probably everybody got a degree except for Sam. But Sam was the only one that owned his own business on Market Street, San Francisco.
But
Unfortunately,
he didn't miss out on nothing though, because he probably made money-wise. He probably made more than all of us.
Wow. What was the store?
It was called the Underground Head Shop in San Francisco, 1588 Market Street.
Yeah.
Wow.
He would have,
Biggest thing around.
yeah,
Yeah.
he would have came, but he was at my house. The VA called him for an appointment that he needed to get to, so at 2:00. So that
Yeah.
caused him. But,
Yeah, because
but
we expect.
but everybody did well. In like I said, my oldest brother was an accountant for the federal, well, not accountant, auditor for the federal
yeah.
government.
GAO.
Then Sam, then Louise, she was an administrator at Stanford, and then when she moved back here over at the
A health
Health
sciences
Science Center, and
Okay.
then, well, like I said, he retired from the military, and then myself, I was a computer programmer well, I ended up retiring from the state. I also retired from Fleming Scrivener also, but I did IT work, and then made GS-17 or something at Tinker.
Wow, that's high.
And then
14.
It's still high.
Yeah.
It was decent. Yes.
Yeah. And then my sister.
I have a decent retirement.
Yeah. And then Alice graduated from engineering from Oklahoma State. I think she's a GS
We have
14.
several family members who graduated from OSU.
Oh, go Pokes.
OSU.
Yeah, well, the majority of the
Yeah.
family members have graduated.
And the second generation, matter of fact, I have a grandson who starts Monday at OSU.
Yes, because classes
Yeah.
do start Monday.
Yes.
Mm.
But so much so that one year, and I don't remember which year it was, one year OSU gave a reception for the Burge family because there were so many people who had graduated from OSU in different areas. Chemical engineering, computer science, electrical
That is
engineering,
incredible.
industrial engineering is Dana.
Yeah,
And they're STEM. I mean,
yeah,
so you're graduating from OSU in STEM?
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's no
Yeah,
small
yeah,
feat.
yeah, some-
Now I'm not STEM. I'm business administration. Got something need administration.
GS
call me.
14 though. So,
Yeah, and then like she said, something other relative that like Ligan the third. I think he was the youngest person
Yes.
to
Yeah.
graduate with his PhD from it. His dad did also, but I think he
But he was the youngest.
what was his name?
It's Ligan Bird, and he's at Howard University.
He's over the IT at Howard
name
University.
You probably have heard his name.
I'm gonna say,
Yeah.
is it Legand?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ligan.
Yeah,
You
you've
probably
heard
have
it.
heard of Ligan.
Because one of the reasons why they did the reception, they were trying to get him to come be a professor there, and he got sick. He got sick at the last minute, and of course they had all the plans and work.
Yeah.
So we enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well,
Back to our
God.
community though.
Well, no, I'm
Yeah.
thinking like the success of all of your family members, right? Like,
Yeah.
and then you talk about the luminaries and leaders in the community and things like that. So, what is the correlation, if there is, between like the community, the close knit community, and like how successful all of you guys turned out? I mean, did the community have any like?
Well,
Yeah.
I just think they wanted all their kids to do better than what they did, and so many of them did. You know, because we had doctors that come out of the community and stuff like that. And,
Yep.
you know, Kevin Cox. You know, we had a lot of successful people that come out of the community, and thanks to our elementary teachers that, you know, basically Miss Sim them they made sure you
Sim,
learn.
Miss McCurdy, Miss
Yeah.
Ward, she
Yeah.
died a few years ago. Miss
Mhm.
Ward, but she's got a daughter. I know that's still living. Yolanda.
Oh,
I don't know what her last name is now, but
she
it
was
was Ward.
she was at church a couple of Sundays
Yeah.
ago, and
But,
June got there.
But I mean, the teachers. I mean, you know, I think that's one thing that's missing now, is that, you know, we had teachers who cared. We had teachers who were going to do their best to make sure you did your best, whatever it took. It wasn't good enough to say, I don't want to, I can't do, or even to sit there and not do. You were going to do it before you left that class. You know, you were going to learn what you was supposed to learn. You were going to do, because for one thing, parents were different. You tell my parents that, well, they never had to do this because I would not be sitting here. But, you know, that May Helen didn't do such and such. You know, yeah, that was never going to happen. Well, I like living. You know, but, you know.
And then by some of them being teachers, sometimes the word would even get back through our auntie who was a teacher.
Yeah,
Oh.
And it would go around through the circle and come
That's
back.
right.
And be like, what?
That's right. Because when I pledged the sorority,
Which one?
AKA Africa. Yes. When I pledged the sorority, I mean, they all knew Auntie. We called her Auntie.
Yeah.
Los Angeles. I mean, they all knew her. And so, you know, it was, well, there was a little blip there because they thought I had pledged Delta. But then Miss Nancy Davis, I said, oh, no, she did not. Because her and Auntie and Clara Looper, they were buddies. So she knew
Yeah, they all
that she knew I had not played. And so, but you know, and that was a thriving force. Even our grandmother, you know, was big into education.
Stressed.
And so there was no option. I remember my daughter saying, somebody asked what she was going to do after high school. She said, well, you know, I'm going to school. Yeah. I mean, it was kind of like there was no, why do you ask that? You know, we go to school.
Yeah.
You know, and she you know, has her
School
master's
or
degree.
military.
And I think
Yeah, you do school or military.
another driving factor of the community was there was no big guys and little U's.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was humble. Yeah, I'm a doctor. Yes, my kids becoming doctors. They were, you know, well and grateful that happened.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't go around like, oh, you know,
I
my
ain't
son's
so
better than yours, so
Yeah.
you know, we can't do this. You know,
Yeah.
none of that type of stuff went
Yeah.
on. You know,
Yeah.
so it kept everybody on a nice level ground to
Yeah.
work. You know, okay, well, it's my turn to give back, to help. Then guess what? I'm stepping up.
Yeah.
And there was no question about what was going to happen.
Wow.
You know.
I remember Dr. Atkins, you know, if somebody was sick, mother called his office and he come by the house after work. He just stop it, you know, because he's just across the street. The only reason I remember going into his office was when we had our shots. And that was a disaster. Yeah, little kids running around hollering. But but otherwise, you know, he came to the house. He just
Well, a lot of them made house
Speaking
calls.
of Dr. Atkins, one episode I had, we were out at my aunt's house. She lived out in Luther, Oklahoma, Jones, Oklahoma.
That wasn't the tooth. was
And
it?
so, yeah, it was a tooth. One of my teeth came out. And so, I don't know how old I was, probably 11, 12, somewhere in that area.
Nah, you wasn't that old.
I'm playing with my tooth. So I stuck my tooth in my ear.
Yep.
Took it out. I think I did 2 or 3 times. 4th time, I couldn't get it out.
Oh.
So of course, I told my mother,
Nobody could get it.
and my mother was like, "Okay, so everybody's doctor now. They're trying to get this tooth out."
I got a nice here. I can get it.
So finally, my mother said, "Okay, let's go on." Went to bed, and it's possibly the thing may ease itself out. But if not in the morning, we'll call Dr. Atkins.
Yeah.
So, of course, it didn't come out on his own. And she called Dr. Atkins up, and Dr. Atkins came over and looked at it, you know.
Got his little tooth out.
Yeah, took his little hook or whatever it was, put it in there. He said, "You're not going to do that again, right?" No, I'm not going to do that again.
Yeah, lesson learned.
Yeah, so like she said, Dr. Atkins was definitely a person that gave his services. We may not have had the money to pay him back, but guess what? We could cut the grass,
Yeah,
do whatever to help out.
Yeah, Dad would do
Yeah.
something.
Mhm.
It wasn't you could.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you guys are just describing like a true community.
Yeah,
it
I
was.
mean, Unlike what we see today, but
Oh, yeah.
but understanding like we don't have the money to pay you, but
Yeah,
we've got the labor,
services, that's
the
right.
service
Something.
to do something
Yeah,
to help
absolutely.
out. And yeah,
Mhm.
wow, that's
Because I remember Louise and R. Alice working at
Miss
Dr.
Atkins.
Atkins or Hannah Atkins,
Oh,
same household, you know, helping clean house and stuff, you know.
mhm.
Although I think they paid them.
Yeah.
I don't think
Yeah.
that was a barter. I think she paid them,
yeah.
which was good. I mean, it's like the first
Yeah.
job. And then even Dr. Bisco, Miss Bisco, I think her first name was Alice
Mhm.
Bisco. She also employed one of them. I worked in the yard. I had to do day labor.
So
I'd rather do the yard.
you guys mentioned you like 1st through 8th grade Harrison schools.
Yes.
Mhm.
Where did you all go for high school?
I went to when I left Harrison, I went to FD Moon over in Oklahoma City, and then FD Moon had the 7th and 8th grade, so I completed both of them there, and then for the 9th grade, they had 9th grade, but they opened John F. Kennedy, JFK. They opened it up. We were first class in there and the first class to leave. And after I left that, was the time, during, they had busing had started.
In
And we was like
1965,
the
yeah.
3rd or 4th year maybe into it. Because our parents didn't really want us to get involved in that. But the point came, okay, it's safe enough, but we think that you guys won't have a problem with it. And so I went to start Spencer High School.
Okay.
Probably. Well, he was the last one to go to Oklahoma City to school. The rest of us graduated from.
Because at some point at Harrison, it stopped going through. It stopped at 6th grade.
Yeah.
1 through 6.
Well, they changed the name to George Wright.
At the same time.
I'm not sure what the same time, but
yeah,
basically
while I was
they changed
there,
the name.
my last year in the
They
6th
changed the
grade,
name.
it was George Wright. But I don't know at what point it changed from Harrison to George Wright.
Right.
And it may be at the point when they changed it from 1 through 8 and started, because I started busing in 65. Like you said, when they first started busing in that community, our parents didn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I said, my dad's always called himself smart, so he probably figured, okay, let's let this work itself out first, and then my kids will be able to go, because then the kids be used to us. Because when I started at Star Spencer, it was 3/4 white and 1/4 black.
That's crazy.
And when I came back from the military, like, it's a
I
black
know
school.
what happened.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about it, though, where we lived, Millwood was closer, but they would not let us go to Millwood.
Yeah.
But when I came back from the military, like, when they saw that black one go to Millwood.
but Millwood was an independent school.
Oh, that's what it was.
District.
Oh,
and,
okay.
and everything was public.
Okay.
Yeah. But the first year I went to Star Spencer, they had a race ride.
Mm-hmm.
The first year, in that first 9 weeks, they had a race ride, a full-blown race ride. And, folks were scattering everywhere. But
what happened? Tell me about it.
See, I don't know.
what happened? Well, I don't know. I was standing in the hallway. I ain't even seen a good fight in my lifetime, with less people riding. But I remember some of the folks, at that time, we had the big afros. And I remember one or two folks, they had, the big cake knives. We used to comb my hair with that. Yeah. They were fighting with that. There was a like a Dairy Queen or something down on the corner of 36 and Spencer Road.
Yeah.
I ended up following some folks down there because I wasn't even familiar with Spencer because we didn't live in Spencer.
Yeah.
So I don't know about Spencer. So anyway, I followed them down there until some kind of way the all clear came, and then we came back to school. So, but the first year I was there, they had a race ride, and that would have been 66.
Yes.
I think that would have been 1966.
So
But,
right after Black
yeah,
City.
and now basically it's a black school.
That's why I'm like, I can't even picture Star Spencer as a white school.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can't even visualize it.
Yeah.
'Cause
Like I said, when I
it's-
left, I graduated in 71. When I left, it was still a majority of white school.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Changed.
and it was definitely predominantly white when I went.
Yeah.
When I started.
Yep.
And
Which is interesting because I'm like, were white people living in
Yeah,
Spencer?
but you had white flight. Big and let's see, a few years later, probably around 69, 7. No, you graduated in 71. Oh, 70, 73. In 73, they merged Dungy area with Star Spencer. And then that began the, becoming, and then Arcadia
No,
got merged with.
Arcadia came before Dungeon.
Well, okay, the Arcadia and Dungy.
69.
So that was an influx of blacks.
Yeah, 69. They brought Arcadia over, and then after I left,
because I was the
Dungy,
last graduating
they closed
class
down.
before Dungy.
Yeah, they
came.
brought over Dungy.
I graduated in
So
72.
that's when I guess at that point when it's starting to and then so you like said white flight
Mhm.
because all around Starfield High School they all white communities.
Yes.
Oh.
You go there now, that's not the case.
Yeah.
Because the first house that we bought, that was they were moving because there were so many blacks. Now this was in Midwest City, but that area went to Star Spencer,
Okay.
and so they sold the house. My husband at that time, we bought and that's exactly where they were moving.
Mm.
So Spencer isn't exactly a historically black neighborhood.
Oh
No.
No, now,
That's
No,
green.
they had some black
yeah, that's
additions.
that's green. Yeah, the
They have-
addition,
yeah,
green,
Green
pasture,
Pastures,
and
Hicks
Hicks
Edition,
addition.
and
Yeah.
there's another one.
Yeah, and that was
okay.
out, Post
Further.
Road,
Yeah.
those were black communities.
Now, believe it or not, in the Harrison edition, there was some white
Yeah,
families that lived. The Millers,
Oh,
the
Mr.
Nichols.
Yeah.
Who was it? That was just below the store there on to the south. There was
Yeah, but I
Oh.
don't know. But yeah,
I don't know.
we got to tell her about Mr. Miller's store. on
Yeah,
the
but we'll
corner.
get to it. Finish this first. We'll get to Miller's store. Yeah, the bologna
So-
sandwiches and stuff.
and that's where my dad would get hay from, like Mr. Nichols, and then the other guy that sold hay. I forget his name, but
Yeah,
he was a big rancher, and he did a lot of
his,
Thomas Collins.
planting snow, baling hay,
his
and all
dog
that
rode
good
the bus
stuff.
with us.
So we would buy from him. So we knew them, real not. You can't like you
We didn't
say, "Oh, my
socialize,
friend."
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
we knew them.
But
Yeah.
we knew
And they
them,
knew
and
us.
everybody was cordial with everybody, So,
Mhm.
so we didn't have really a problem with that until this school time comes, when now we're merging into and then people was like, as whites do, they want to be superior and everything else,
Yeah.
which wasn't the case, which still not the case.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we had people, and we basically integrated with them, and we didn't have a problem as a community, not at all.
Yeah. Now we'll tell you
And that
about
was
Miller's
kind
store.
of, the area was kind of considered the country.
Mhm.
It's still
Not
considered the
anymore.
country.
Oh,
Really?
yeah.
You
Yeah.
live way out there in the country.
Yeah.
No, I live in
Oh,
the
y'all live
suburbs.
way out there on 63rd?
Yeah, that was kind of, but
I
When you
live in the
mentioned,
suburbs.
my thought was like, oh, we went all the way out to 63rd. Like that was my mind too. So
yeah, no.
I'm essentially 3 miles straight behind Remington Park, east.
okay.
If you could drive straight
Yeah.
from Remington Park, you would end up on our land.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. I know that area.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Miller's store, and I do want
Yes.
to talk about, like, a lot of folks who I interview talk about, we had everything in our community we didn't need to leave. We had stores and churches and theaters. So
No.
what all
Not
did you
quite.
all have? Like, you talked about Miller's store, but what other
Yeah.
shops?
Miller's store, it was kind of like a little general store.
Mhm.
Mostly concentrated on food,
Mhm.
but it was kind of like a little general store. And up until a few years ago, I always thought he owned that property.
Yeah.
He does not.
Mm.
And he's this little white man in the middle of all these black folks.
Mhm.
But he was leasing that
Mhm.
from a black family, the Joneses.
The Jones.
And some of them, actually, they still own the land.
Yep.
That
They
they
own it.
all the way to the top of the hill where the bus.
Yeah.
And maybe even further back. I don't know. I just know that they still own the land.
Wow.
And I didn't realize that until I was well grown. But we didn't, that was really the only store.
Right.
There was gas
Yeah,
there.
gas and food.
But
Right.
we didn't
Yeah,
have other things
yeah.
beside what people, had at their home as, personal.
You went to the cleaners and stuff. That still was all on the east side.
Mhm.
Okay.
That's when that's the only place you could go was the
Yeah.
east side, and at that time, the east side had everything you needed. Because
There was no reason to do it.
everybody that's the only place you could go,
Yeah.
basically, and so of course now when they opened up the malls and immigration came in, that's to me is why the east side kind of died, because everybody took their money, they went out to the malls and all, and of course we could start living other places,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
stuff like that, and so that was that. But back to our community. But
I mean,
yeah,
it all kind of fits in for
Mhm.
sure, because
Yeah.
when you think about the Harrison edition being this,
right.
out in this rural area, but you're still having to come into the east side for
Yeah. Yeah.
other things.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Once a
it's
week,
still
payday,
interconnected.
Yeah, my mother would go into town and buy, because like I said, he just had the little general store where you can, get a little stuff, and gas, and he'll allow you, the grown folks,
Mhm.
get stuff on credit,
Yeah.
stuff like that. Oh, you Augusta Burge son, okay, I just, or do Dad send you down there, or Mother send you down there, and tell them to put her credit. And say, okay, we'll put her your credit, and they would pay Dad and stuff like that. So he got along with everybody.
Yep.
I know at one point, Dad and him and Mother and them was in negotiating about. Daddy thought about buying the store from him at one point. I'm not sure what happened. I don't know if Daddy could get along.
Probably because he didn't know it.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I just remember Daddy wanted to do that because his father always never worked for anybody. He always, kind of entrepreneur himself. So Dad was wanting to do that, but I don't know what happened that didn't work out for us. So.
One thing I like to, before we wrap, is I'm just interested in, like, you grew up in this addition and then you left. So what happened? I'm not in a bad way, but I'm saying, like, you graduated high school, and then what did your lives look like after you graduated high school? You talked a little bit about that, like GS14, IT, and military, but can you just talk to me, like, okay, so I graduated high school and then.
Yeah, well, I graduated from high school 71 that Thursday. The next day I went to the Air Force because all of my other brothers, of course I had a draft notice. Back then they were doing the draft, but I had a scholarship offer in track, but I wasn't ready to go back to school at that time, So all my brothers, 3 brothers was in the military, so I was like, let me go see the world too.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. And then after I did my 4 years, I graduated from City College in San Francisco. I lived out there for about 5 more years, and then I needed to come because my parents were starting to get elderly. So I'm being out of young. I wasn't married or anything. So that's when I moved back to Oklahoma. Then I started my career in IT. With the state. Then I went to the private sector for a while. Then I came back, of course, then along the way, I got married, had kids, and
life happened.
I moved to
life
happened. Yeah, I bought a house in Midwest City. It's a house I liked, the first house we had, and that's how we ended up in Midwest City. And the other thing about that was that I remember, if you all probably don't remember, they wasn't too thrilled about black folks being in Midwest City. Matter of fact, when you would go to Tinker, you could only go to Tinker.
Transit.
But I think one of the base commanders put a stop to that because, you have black military people trying to find houses and things. And somehow they I guess he got with whoever the mayors and the civilians said, hey, if you don't stop this practice, Tinker may not be here. Somehow that's kind of how that kind of changed where black people were able to start, shopping and stuff and living in Midwest City.
And I think that was a little bit of a reason too that they started carpooling, versus all of us trying to get through to get to work. Because everybody had a good job at Tinker, but you had to get to Tinker.
Yeah.
And to get to Tinker, you had to come through all these only white places. And like Herman said, they were not thrilled
that
about
probably
that.
was safety.
So the numbers, like 4 people, 5 people riding. The probability of something to happen is a little less, At least somebody there to tell it, if nothing else, whatever.
And not that the jobs was that great for a lot of them, but it was stable income.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because and a lot of the people in the community also, the men, they went and cut yards over in Nichols Hills and stuff on the weekend and stuff to make a few extra dollars to do things for the family and stuff like that. 'Cause, they wasn't at the top of the food chain.
Exactly.
Not like my sister and them was able to do.
I ended up working in one of the same areas that my dad worked in, and some of the same people were there. His second line supervisor, who was a WG-13, had a third grade education, could not even read. And one of when I went out there, because they opened up wage grade to women. Well, I have a kid to take care of. It pays more than where I am. I'm gone. And so, one of them asked me why I was in the shop, because I think I was almost finished with my first degree, and I said I came to get revenge. and so he looked at me kind of funny, and I said I came to get revenge.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I knew that's what Dad, and they knew him. They knew.
Wow.
They knew my dad.
What a full circle.
Yes, it really was, and so I knew exactly what he had been through and the people he was dealing with.
Yeah.
And they tried to block me. Told me that the paperwork says I went into a training program that you do these certain things, you automatically promoted to this grade. You do this certain thing, you automatically promoted to the other. Well, I came in there looking at the end, and so I got it done right away. And you just can't do that quick. Tell me why.
Where's
Tell me what's missing. And I almost had to file a grievance to get me and another white lady, both of us had done it, and we almost ended up having to file a grievance to get what we had earned. And then right after that, then I got promoted into another program that was in the office areas, and that's how I got out of there.
Wow.
But yeah, it's definitely a good old boy system out there.
Yeah.
What made me decide to leave were there really wasn't any jobs unless you were like places like Tinker. I think at the time Western Electric was a big deal around here. So there were not a whole lot of what you would call career jobs, to get into, and I see my brother, June went from, I think it's first and second year in college, driving a truck. Now, wait a minute. He got 2 years of college, and the best he can do, they get him as driving a truck. What did it say for me? And I hadn't even started college, so I said, okay, I'm going in the military. And at least nothing else, like Herman said, I get to travel. I get to see something other than Oklahoma City, 6:30 through the road. I can see something else. So
different too.
Boom. Yeah. So we got in the military. I come up with my first 4 years. Vietnam was going on. They say, well, since you're in aircraft maintenance, and that's what we used to call a variable reenlistment bonus, we'll pay you $4,000 to stay. So at the time, I said, yeah, I was married. So me and the wife, we said, we don't have anything else planned to do. If I get out, I'm going back home to nothing really set up to do. So give me the money.
Yeah.
So I reenlisted, and boom. Next thing I know, I'm at 25. Okay, it's time to retire.
Right. I can leave now.
So that was my real inspiration to go. But we had parents that pushed us too. Like, you can't just sit around and do nothing. You got to be doing something constructive.
That's right.
No matter what it may be. It may be pushing a broom,
that's right,
but you're gonna be the best.
Be the best.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. The my first day out of high school, Dad comes to my bedroom door. He says, "What you gonna do? You're going to school? You're going to the military? You're going to work?" I said, I guess I'll go to school.
Right.
That's all I knew.
It's like, you don't get a day to relax. You gotta figure this out.
But the thing about it, which was okay, that worked out. But the thing about that is, I graduated number 2 in my high school. No one ever talked to me about college or the military or anything. My senior year, Nancy Davis was there. Mrs. Nancy Davis, Nancy R. Davis, was there at the time, and you talk about an advocate for the black student. She was an advocate, but we also had Miss Cudjoe and Stewart. They were both Deltas, another reason why they thought I had pledged guilty. Well, they came. I took all the senior business courses. I didn't take the, where you had to read all these novels. And
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
I did shorthand and all that stuff because I've always liked business. So they happened to come to when I had both of them for one had shorthand and one did typing. I think Miss Stewart came first, and she said, "Mae, what are you doing after high school?" I said, "I don't know about it." And so she said, "Have you applied for any scholarship?" Because they knew what my ranking was in the class. And I said, "No." So she said, "Okay, you're going to take she said, we vote tonight. You take our class period, you're going to write an essay." And I did. I won the scholarship. So I went to Langston for a year. And then after that, I transferred to, it was further out in the country in the 630. So I couldn't handle it. And so I know. It was. I went to
out in the
Langston.
middle of nowhere.
I said it was out.
Yes.
Yeah, it was further out than 630. So,
Yeah.
so I couldn't.
It's
So
like
anyway,
more
that,
rural.
yeah. So I and then I transferred to Central State UC on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Central
Whatever
State,
they call it.
and did the bachelor's and master's there, and then I eventually went to OU and have a master's in and a master's in humanities,
Okay.
and then I have an MBA.
Wow.
So, and then I also have a War College degree. So I did the Tinker thing, and which was it was good. There were challenges.
Yeah.
There definitely were challenges, but it definitely provided a great living for be able to take care of my children and assist some of my younger sisters with what they needed to do and my parents. So that's how I ended up.
Yeah, but one of the motivating things were working
Manual labor.
on our farm
Mm-hmm.
in the heat and stuff. I always knew when I grow up,
It ain't for me.
it ain't gonna be no outside
Yeah.
job.
And I think we all said that.
Yeah.
knew that.
Yeah.
Like, I am not getting an outside job.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah.
But
It's Oklahoma heat.
when I remember in the second grade, so I just wanted to be a truck driver because I saw Mr. who had the big dump truck. His wife worked in the cooking in the school.
Oh, Hazel Bates. Bates?
No, wasn't
No.
Bates. I can't think of their name. Who used to.
Level third depot?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and I can't think his name.
Yeah, but anyway, that's why I wanted to be until the third grade, and somehow a subject was on about computers and stuff, and that's when the first thing, for some reason, that sounds interesting. That's what I want to do, and so some years later, my senior year, my junior year, me, Richard Ivy, and Henry Doris, we were goofing off in the hallway. And Mr. Counselor, I forget his name, white guy, he called us and said, "What y'all gonna do in y'all's life?" He said, "Y'all come into my office, y'all take these aptitude tests." Okay, so we all took that, and we all got high for IT, data processing and stuff. And so the next year, we was picked to go to the tech school. And we both, me and Richard was for programming, computer programming. And then Henry, I think it was a computer operator. But anyway, that's how I got my start in that. And that's the thing I recognize today is that there's so many career fields that we don't know about.
Yeah.
And I tried to, my grandkids at least tried to, hey, there's a lot of other stuff exposed because I take them to the library and stuff. Because there's a lot that I wasn't aware of things, of that they all thought about was manual labor.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't realize that there were so many
careers.
other careers that to get into. And so But anyway, that was my deal with that third grade. I just always think, well, what if I had missed that day?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Then what would
Yeah.
your life look like now?
Yeah, what am I?
What would you be?
That was what I like.
Well, we are at 55 minutes.
Oh, okay.
So I know time flies. Any last thoughts? Any last thoughts about the Harrison edition?
Well, I don't think we have touched on this. As far as you ask us what we did in the community, some of the things we had church socials.
Mhm.
Sometimes it was at the church. Sometimes it was at different people's homes, including ours. And I remember at Harrison, we had every year we had the wrapped and maypole.
Oh, May Day.
I don't know what they call, but we wrapped the maypole. That was a big to do.
Yeah.
And learning how to wrap the maypole.
Mhm.
And then trick or treat.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my goodness, we walked. You know, the area we told you from Wilshire. Actually, it goes beyond Wilshire because the Felixes they live beyond.
Yeah.
They live almost halfway between, but basically Wilshire.
Yeah.
So we went from Coltrane, from 63rd, all the way over to Wilshire, all the way over to Coltrane. We covered that whole
Oh my God.
area in that night.
Oh, it would be in groups. You know.
We in group. But
But
then you learn that there are certain houses that do certain things, like
Yeah.
A.C. Johnson, his wife,
Yeah.
she always had hot chocolate and popcorn and stuff.
Oh, wow.
The Miss Johnson across the street from us, I think she had little bags of popcorn or something,
Mhm.
you know. And so you gonna make it to these certain. It's like
Yeah.
it's like they strategically place the really good stuff, a good distance away, so you'd be encouraged to keep going all that way.
Yeah.
Now I live in that area. I mean, I live where we grew up. Now, mother, as she got older, she's ready to go back home. So anyway, that's how I ended up back home.
Mhm.
But she, but now, I mean, there is just nothing. I mean, there's not really even that many children in that neighborhood
Yeah.
now. I mean, so the last mother of our mothers, I want to say that was Miss Ivy, I believe.
Yeah,
It's either Miss Ivy or Miss Lawrence, and she passed a few years ago.
Yeah, that was Miss Lawrence was the last one.
Yeah,
She
so
passed a couple
now
years
all of our
ago, right after
the mothers of the community, you know,
Mhm.
are gone now.
Wow.
Mhm. But yeah, and the one thing all the family had in common, you better be home by 12 o'clock.
Okay.
Now, well, you better be there by 11:59.
Because at 12 o'clock you're late.
Yeah.
12 o'clock you're late. Yeah, that was everybody had that same deal, you know. Even though at back then, remember at 10 o'clock right before the news come on.
Do you know where your children are?
Do you know what that was on
My
TV?
parents used to say that all the
Do you
time.
know where your children are?
Yeah.
And so they look around.
Do?
Yeah, they really make people look around like,
Wow.
they got
Yeah,
kids.
They need to do that today.
That TV deal was the original Fade to Black, because after they did that and then Star Spangled Banner,
Well, that was at midnight.
and then
TV was cut
next thing
off.
you know, TV was gone.
Wow.
Until the
Might
next
as well
day.
go to
So
bed.
you
Ain't
ain't
nothing else to
got
do.
nothing to do but go
But
to
go to
bed.
sleep. Yeah. Or read a book.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, the lights went out.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
But
No
Go
reason
to
to
sleep.
but see, I don't. When did we get a TV though?
I think June said we got it on his birthday.
Yeah.
One though.
The 10th birthday on my oldest brother's 10th birthday.
Oh,
He's
his
80 now.
Okay.
He said we moved to the land that we're on.
In 1954.
He said we moved to the land that we're on, and then Dad took him to Otasco, and he bought him a wagon, a bike, and they bought the TV.
Wow.
Otasco, Oklahoma
Okay.
Tire and Supply. Never heard of it.
It's the new Walmart. It was the old Walmart.
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, they had
The
it.
old Walmart.
Yeah, they had everything.
They had it.
Okay.
Yeah.
People were
Learning all
serious.
kinds
Yeah,
of
not
things.
that
Party
old.
lines.
Yes, quite a lot. Yes. Oh, that was an experience.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a
So
great
we-
interview. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah. And that was when the phone, you had to
Yeah, with the dial.
Yeah.
I remember
Oh,
those.
yeah.
My granny had one of those. So I remember
you
those.
had the dial,
Yeah.
Rotary. Yeah, you had rotary phones.
Yeah.
But you remembered everybody's phone number. Now I can tell you, I can tell you hers. Everybody else, I don't have to look up. I
Look
lose
it
my
up,
cell phone,
right?
I'm in trouble.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, back then,
Wow.
you know, 10 or 20 phone numbers in your head. Yeah. And, 'cause I knew my dad did, because my dad was partially blind, and so after he passed, I remember people from the community saying, "Yeah, I miss Gus Burge. He used to call almost every day.
He called.
He called all the elderly people
Mhm.
almost every day in the community,
Mhm.
you know, just to check on them."
Yeah. He was legally blind, but you saw him outside, you wouldn't know it.
Wow.
Yeah.
You would not know it.
No, but yeah, it was a great. I would say a great community to grow up in,
Yeah.
because, like I said, there was
Yeah, the community is
You
responsible
didn't
for
have-
our success.
fighting and stuff among the families, all the
Mhm.
kids. Either everybody got along, you know, and stuff. And like I said, the doctor's kids, they wasn't uppity. Even
Exactly.
Calvin in what's the young one?
Carolyn?
Carolyn, the girl. Just, just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
we just all,
Yeah.
So
Nobody was rich in money or value, but everybody
Yeah,
was rich in spirit.
yeah.
and
The kids,
rich in assistance. You know.
but the kids did
Yeah.
well, you know. And
Thank you guys
so okay.
for speaking to me. I have to get a quick photo, but this has been an incredible interview. I've had great interviews all day, so
Yeah.
I feel so blessed.
Well, I'm glad you
And
get the
grateful.
steals. Yeah, when I see them, I'm like,
Okay, I'm gonna stop recording.